Hey, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakaha Kodash. Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace, love, salutations, and blessings to the house of David, which is the elect. And, just wanted to touch on this breaking news. It says the FBI warns California that Iran wants to strike U.S. West Coast in retaliation for American attacks. And, just off of the bat, reading that, the first question, you would have is, well, how does the FBI know this, right? How do they get this, this information, especially when Trump has been saying that the communication, right, out of Iran, and their military and their operations have been cut off. All right. So, they're saying that they can't even communicate with one another in Iran. So how is it that the FBI has this this knowledge that they want to, do a retaliatory attack on American soil by attacking Iran? And this, once again, looks like a potential for a setup for a, false event. OK, and then blaming it on Iran. Right. It being done by, the powers that be. All right. The secret councils of the wicked, which, as we have mentioned time and time before, that's a part of their MO. OK, so let's read a little bit of this. It says the the Federal Bureau of Investigation has issued a warning to law enforcement agencies in California, stating that they have recent intelligence that indicates, quote, Iran allegedly aspired to conduct a surprise attack using unmanned aerial vehicles from an unidentified vessel off the coast of the United States, specifically against unspecified targets in California. In the event that the U.S. conducted strikes against Iran, according to reporting from ABC News. Now, that just sounds like a bunch of BS, but it all plays and serves a purpose because, what they, want is a need or a reason rather to escalate, what is going on over there in Iran, because the whole mission isn't just to, bomb a bunch of different buildings. OK, their ultimate goal is to turn Iran into, Libya or Iraq. All right. Basically have them have no sovereignty, no, power, and be at the mercy of the 48ers. Right. So in order to do that, and they also see that America isn't backing, right, this operation, right? The Trump administration isn't getting the support from the American people. All right. And similarly to what happened in World War II, where America, wanted the administration, right, the government, really at the behest, once again, of the 48ers, right, wanted to enter into the World War II fight, but they didn't have the public support. So they allowed Pearl Harbor to take place. All right, because there is, information that, basically they forced Japan, right, to do that attack. Right. When you go into the history of it, Japan, basically, I think they said America cut off Japan's trade or oil, something to that effect. And in return, Japan had to, they was pushing into a corner and had to retaliate. And the retaliation was what happened in Pearl Harbor. However, the government, right, they knew that was they had intel that was going to take place, but they let it happen so that, the American people can, be in a state of panic and anger that, they were attacked on their soil. And then that allowed who was the president at that time? Let me see. Who was the president? I think it was, is it Woodrow Wilson? No. Or is it Roosevelt during Pearl Harbor? Can't remember offhand. Oh, yep, Roosevelt. Okay. So Roosevelt was the president at that time. So, yeah, they they knew that was going to happen. Similarly to like when George Bush was reading, reading a children's book, right? I forget. I think they might have said he was reading a children's book on planes. I could be wrong about that, but when he got the information about what happened in New York City. So here's the actual article on it. FBI warns Iran inspired to attack California with drones in retaliation for war. Alert. And they've been telegraphing this, for a few weeks now, right? We done videos on that showing how Trump, made mention of how the American people, he says, quote, I guess, when it comes to whether they should be worried about an attack on U.S. soil, right? When he spoke about that they expect some things to happen and that there is going to be, some people are going to die. So this is all something that when it does happen, right? Those of us that have been, paying attention, that have been the children of the day, right? Not as the children of the night. We're not going to be overtaken or surprised, right? This day is not going to overtake us as a thief. Okay. But the majority of people still are under this, gross darkness. They're under this facade, right? And this false sense of security, thinking that, America is untouchable. No evil, shall overtake or prevent them, right? As it says in the book of Amos about the Lord's people, right? And the Lord's people ultimately are the Israelites. However, they are in that same, they're in the mindset of the Babylonians, right? They are, drunk off of the wine of this place. So therefore, they're going to, partake of the wrath that is going to come upon this place as well. So let's read it. It says the FBI warned police departments in California in recent days that Iran could retaliate for American attacks by launching drones at the West Coast, according to an alert reviewed by ABC News. And it's interesting that they say California, right? Because you've seen how California has been in the news, when it comes to the whole back and forth with the governor of California, going against Trump, right? And how, California is really a major thorn in the Trump administration and really the so-called Republican party, right? Which we know that they all play, they all are part of the beast, right? The two horns like a lamb, but he spake as a dragon. You see, but we see that over there when it happened with the first wave of the immigration, the National Guard and ICE going, that happened in California, right? They speak about the uprising and the homelessness and all of these things that they speak about, how California is horrible, right? You have all of these, which is actually interesting now that it just hit me. You had a lot of these tech companies left California, right? And they went to Texas. I know Meta, I think Meta was one of them. And also Elon Musk, his company, I believe, left California and went to Texas. So you had a few companies move their headquarters, rather from California. And now you're having this warning alert. It says, we recently acquired information that as of early February 2026, Iran allegedly inspired to conduct a surprise attack using unmanned aerial vehicles from an unidentified vessel off the coast of the United States homeland, specifically against unspecified targets in California in the event that the U.S. conducted strikes against Iran, according to the alert distributed at the end of February. So this was this alert was before the war started. Okay, but they're just bringing it to the public now. And this could be a divergent tactic, right? Have you looking one way when they attack or plan something another, in another direction. So, this is why, as the scripture says, that we have to be circumspect. Okay. Knowing what the will of the Lord is. And at the end of it all, we know that the will of the Lord is to bring plagues upon this place. Okay. And the plagues, as it says in 2nd Ezra, let me get that real quick. The 15th chapter, verse 5, it says, "Behold, saith the Lord, I will bring plagues upon the world, the sword, famine, death, and destruction." Okay, so we know a part of the plagues are what the death. Okay, Ezra says in the 16th chapter, the beginning, as it says here, the beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine and great death, the beginning of wars, and the powers shall stand in fear, the beginning of evils. And what shall I do when these evils shall come? All right. The beginning of evils, bad times. See, sorrows, trouble, anguish, plagues. Okay. And that's something that the mindset here in America, is so far removed from. Okay. They think that is not possible in this place. But little do they know, they're about to witness and experience the greatest amount of turmoil and death and disaster and chaos, and it's rightfully so. All right, as it says that their hurtful works are fulfilled. The Lord will no longer hold his tongue no more as touching their wickedness, and this place is oversaturated, with wickedness. All right, Jeremiah the 51st chapter, it tells you that the Babylon sins has reached unto heaven. See? So reading on, it says, "We have no additional information on the timing, method, target, or perpetrators of this alleged attack." See? So they don't have any information, but they know that, they know who's bringing it, where it could come from, and where it's going to be attacked, where the state, right, is going to, that may potentially be hit, but they don't have any additional information. All right. And they say they don't have any methods, additional information on a method. But when you read it tells you the method is what? Unmanned aerial vehicles. So drones. So that is the method. Right. It says the warning and the whole thing is they want people to be on edge, and then they want something to, and then have something take place, and that's going to take them over the edge, because now they're going to feel, unsafe, right? They're going to feel, very afraid, because if something like that happens, then they're just going to be in a state of constant, fearfulness and panic, thinking that, or when's the next one going to happen? See? And because people don't have faith in a higher power, right? They don't really truly believe in the Most High, right? The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They're going to look, to Egypt for help. You see? And, when I say that, I'm speaking about Israelites, because these heathens, they're going to call upon their idols, their false gods. And really, and when that happens, they're going to realize very quickly that those are no gods. And they're also going to look to Egypt for help. All right. It says the warning came just as the Trump administration launched its ongoing assault against the Islamic Republic. Iran has been retaliating with drone strikes against targets throughout the Middle East. A spokeswoman for the FBI office in LA declined to comment. The White House did not immediately respond to a request for comments, of course. The intelligence agency officials have grown concerned in recent months about the expanding use of drones by Mexican drug cartel and the chance the technology could be used to attack American forces and personnel near the Mexican border. An corroborated report suggests that unidentified Mexican cartels leader had authorized attacks using UAS drones carrying explosives against U.S. law enforcement and U.S. Military personnel along the U.S.-Mexico border. It says this type of attack against U.S. personnel or interests inside the United States would be unprecedented, but exemplifies a plausible scenario. Although cartels typically avoid actions that would result in unwanted attention or responses from U.S. authorities. So, they have, already have the scenario, set up. They already have who they want to blame set up, right? They already have, the mindset out there on, having the people think that this is something that could potentially take place. So if these all things are already set up and, put in line, next thing, has to come is the actual event. All right. And, that's something that we have, been constantly harping on, because that is a necessity for them to take this to the next level. All right. For them to, be able to lock everything down, get the through the panic and the chaos, create an established order that would bring in a, totalitarian surveillance state. All right. But in order to get to that point, they need a reason, just like how they brought in the Patriot Act. Right. The Patriot Act wasn't something that came about because, or should I say, it wasn't something that they thought of because of what happened in September 2001. It was something that they already wanted, but they needed a reason to bring it to pass. So reading on, it says, we know that Iran has an extensive presence in Mexico and South America. They have relationships. They have the drones, and now they have the incentive to conduct attacks, Cohen said. Right. And why do they have this incentive? It's because of America, right? Not being, a keeper at home. All right. Being a hammer of the earth, going around just causing mass destruction, mass chaos, trying to topple, countries in the name of democracy. Matter of fact, I seen this other post. I don't know how long ago it was, so it might not be up there. Let me see. But it just showed, what Babylon calls democracy, over the last, few decades, and it was nothing but just mass death, right, and destruction. So, all of these different various news, channels are picking up this FBI warning in California. So, we'll see, right? We'll see. Remember that Iran did say that Americans are going to feel it, or America is going to feel it in their own home, right? That they're not safe in their own home. So, it could very well be that Iran, does do something, but, we'll see. We'll wait and see what happens. But let me see. Israel preparing a major escalation from Iran and Hezbollah later tonight as Benjamin Netanyahu holds an emergency security meeting to assess the threats. Yep. So they talking about it's going to be the war is almost over, but it's looking like it's going in the complete opposite way, right? Iran is laying down sea mines in the Strait of Hormuz. So now it's actually a danger for these ships to, try to traverse through that region. But yeah, they might be too far down. I think it was this channel that posted it. Let me see. They keep doing that. Hey, yep, Turkey, right? Turkey's talking about Israel, the Israelis. It says Turkey, which believes it can secure its safety. It says Salakia, the Israelis, which believes it can secure its safety by terrorizing the region, because that's what these Edomites are. They're nothing but terrorists, man. They're the biggest terrorists of the planet. Okay, is intensifying its attack in Gaza while ignoring the ceasefire it has already failed to abide by. Yep, they make deals with you, as the scripture says, that they make treaties, and then they break them. What is that? Psalms 55. Psalms 55 verse 20. He put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him. He hath broken his covenant. So you had Trump over there talking about the board of peace, and this is the greatest peace deals, right? All this peace that they say that they came to, right, with the ceasefire. And as Turkey is saying, the Israelis, they haven't stopped. They have been ignoring the ceasefire, right, failing to abide by it ever since they agreed to it. It says, and at the same time has begun an attempt to occupy Lebanon. Our region is slowly being dragged toward disaster in the hands of a massacre network that has fallen into a syndrome of arrogance, right? Pride. Oh, speaking of arrogance, I know I'm going a little bit off on a tangent, but that's all right. Isaiah 13, verse 11. And I will punish the world for their evil. And that's what we're witnessing right now. All right, the beginning, right, of the visitation of the Most High upon this place, as it says in 2nd Ezra, the 9th chapter. When you start to see these things, know that it is the very same time where the highest will begin to visit the world which he made. And how is he going to visit the world? With death, destruction, famine, and plagues. Death, destruction, famine, and the sword, right? The plagues. It says, and the wicked for their iniquity. And I will cause the arrogancy of the proud to cease. Who is the proud? Esau, Edom. Obadiah tells you that, right? The pride of thine heart has deceived thee, and will lay low the haughtiness of the terrible. Okay, let's see what that word terrible. when your a description of you is just be called the terrible. I think also in Isaiah the 29th chapter it says that as well, right? The terrible one. It says awe-inspiring, terrible, striking, ruthless, mighty, powerful, tyrannical. See? And that's how this devil moves. He's tyrannical, oppressive, oppress, break, terror. But the Lord said he's going to bring him down, right? In his heart, he says nobody can bring. That's what Esau says, right? Nobody can bring me down to the ground. But the Lord puffed you up that high just to show you that you can be brought down and will be brought down. And he said he's going to lay low the haughtiness of the terrible, right? So they're falling into this syndrome of arrogance, and there's a remedy for that, right? There's a cure for arrogance. It's called humility, okay? And humility is comes in a form, right? For the wicked, it comes in a form of utter pain. Yeah, I'm probably not gonna find it. I think maybe it wasn't this this outlet, but regardless, there was this post that basically, here we go. Hey, the Wadi how about Shimon Shai, right when I was about to stop. Right? Listen to this. Well, it doesn't say anything, but you can read it. You can see it.
Don't invade. Don't invade. Democratic countries actually don't invade their neighbors. Democratic countries don't harbor terrorists. Democratic countries don't use weapons of mass destruction. Don't use weapons of mass destruction.
Right, and this is just for educational purposes, right? I'm not promoting violence or anything of that nature, but just showing historical events, right? Like I said, for educational purposes. But as you just see here, all in the name of democracy, because that's how this devil moves. You see, he speaks, softly, but as it says back in here, his words, right? Psalms 55 verse 21, his words were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. He speaks, his words were softer than oil, yet they were drawn swords. You see? So that's the nature of this man. Okay, as it said in the movie, beware the beast man. Right, he will make a jungle out of his home and yours. But yeah, going back to this, right? See if there's a little more. It says the FBI is smart for putting this warning out so that the state and locals can be better prepared. So like it can be better able to prepare and respond to these types of threats. Information like this is critically important for law enforcement. While the FBI warnings did not specify how or when vessels carrying attack drones could get close enough to the U.S. mainland, right? That's one of the main questions. How can these vessels, these ships get this close to the U.S. mainland to be able to have drones fly off of them without, the American government, right, and their agencies being able to spot them? These are the questions that don't have the answers, right? That's why they ain't specify, because there's holes in this, man. It says intelligence officials have long been concerned about equipment being pre-positioned either on land or on ships at sea in the event the 48ers or the U.S. struck Iran. Well, that's where we're at right now. We're in the event of, Iran being attacked by the 48ers, the small hats in Babylon. So the fallout from it is, the American people are now at the crosshairs of that. And these things are only going to just intensify as, the days draw out. Because as it says here in 2nd Ezra chapter 16, verse 14, behold, the plagues are sent and shall not return again until they come upon the earth. The fire is kindled and shall not be put out till it consumes the foundation of the earth. Like an arrow is which is shot of a mighty archer returneth not backward, so even so the plagues that shall be sent upon the earth shall not return again. Right? And because we're in the time where the Lord has put forth this judgment upon Babylon, right? You think all of this, the carnage is just going to be happening all over the world, and America, right? The one that's in the center of it, the ones that's the cause of it, right? That we just read for millions of lives and billions of dollars, the ones that are causing all of this havoc throughout the earth. You think they're going to be unpunished, right? As it says in Jeremiah 49, right? Should thou go unpunished? Jeremiah 49, verse, where is it? Jeremiah 49, verse 12. For thus saith Yahweh, behold, they whose judgment was not to drink of the cup have assuredly drunken. See? And I haven't even, spoken about the injustice and the wickedness and the bloodshedding you've done to the actual people of the Lord, right? Which is why all of this is coming upon Babylon, anyway, because of the blood of the saints that have been poured out, spilled here, as it says in Revelation, the 17th chapter, right? Nobody's blood has been shed the most by Esau, Edom than the Israelites. When you collectively take, especially just here in America's conception, right? It's been the blood of the Israelites that has been mostly poured out by the hands of this devil. See, so those whose judgment was not to drink of that cup, because we're the Lord's chosen people, have assuredly drunken. So we had to go through, the wrath, all right, of the Lord by the hand, of you devils. Art thou he that shall altogether go unpunished? So do you think you're not going to go punished? You think here in America, you're going to be able to wage war throughout all of the earth, right? Destroying, lands, stealing resources, right? Just completely causing havoc and just get away with that? Should you just go unpunished? Thou shalt not go unpunished, but thou shalt surely drink of it. See, and the fact that you have these Babylonians over here that don't even consider the fact that this country that they live in, and the reason why they have so-called a comfortable and secure and pleasurable life, right, dwelleth in pleasures, they don't consider how it got to that, how it has gotten to this point, right? They don't consider the evil, right, in the rape, robbery, and murder that the place where they are proud to be a part of, the proud to be an American, what that actually entails. And that's why the scripture says, though hand join in hand, the wicked shall not go unpunished. You see, actually, you go back to Isaiah 13th chapter, verse 14, it says, and it shall be as a chased roe. What is the it? America. This place is going to be as a chased roe, and as a sheep that no man taketh up. It says, that should be as a sheep that no man taketh up, and they shall every man turn to his own people and flee to into his own land. So think about it, right? We're living in a time where if there's some type of T attack in this place where the people of America, in the cities don't feel safe, but you still have the ability, to travel, right, and to, take a plane out of America, you could have it to where, if something happens in, let's say this threat becomes realized, right, and manifests, you could have people that are in America that, have dual citizenship from other countries because they came here thinking they was going to get a piece of that American pie, and they realize, oh, it's not safe here, right? But it's it's safe right now in India, or if it's safe right now in China, or it's safe right now in some South American countries, safer, right? Because at least they're not getting hit by attacks in their cities. They may flee back to their own people, back to their own land, because America is a melting pot, right? Babylon, which means confusion. Verse 15, everyone that is found shall be thrust through. So everybody that stays in this place is going to be thrust through. Ultimately, when those missiles hit this place, this is why, the only redemption, only salvation, the only protection that we have, and this is what we, are preaching, is repentance, is because the only way that we're going to be delivered is by way of Yahweh sending Yahweh Shai back in the chariots, man, the strangeness of our salvation. Everybody else that is found left here, once those missiles fly, is going to be thrust through. And everyone that is joined unto them shall fall by the sword. So everyone that says, what, I'm staying here, right? This is my country. I love America. Well, the end of it is going to be you're going to fall by that glittering sword. OK, so I'm going to close it out with that, Lord willing. This was edifying, like I always say, because stay watching, right? Stay circumspect, because we are in evil days, man. We are in those times where at any moment, anything, can take a drastic turn for, the worst. And your regular, day, okay, that you are used to having is no longer, what it is. All right. But, for us, this is why the scripture speaks about we have to be as pilgrims upon the earth. So with that, giving all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakak Wadash. Shalom.